Hey, it's me, MLB. Here is chapter 8 of Future, and this one is titled Preparing for Baby Kirishima. 6 months passed, and both Soshi and Chisuki had grown immensely. Little Soshi was a lovely-natured baby. He had pure white hair, just like his daddy's right side of his head, and iridescent orange eyes. He had an affinity to cold things and adored cold soba, much to Shoto's delight. He loved cuddles and slept in the bed with Shoto and Gem, and Shoto would never miss an opportunity to carry him around, never wanting to put him down. He could sit on his own now and clap his hands. He was gorgeous to look at, and a lot of people commented that he was a good mix of Shoto and Gem. She was a proud mum. Over at the Bakugou household, things were a little different. Chisuki was basically a carbon copy of his father, same bright red eyes and spiky blonde hair, and poor Mrs. Bakugou didn't get a look in at all. He was quieter than when Bakugou had been as a baby, but that silence definitely wasn't golden. If Chisuki was extra quiet, it was suspicious. At 6 months, he was already pulling himself up to standing and moving around on his own 2 chubby legs while holding onto furniture. If he was told not to do something, it almost seemed like he went out of his way to go and do that thing in particular. He was defiant and determined, and he had an intelligence behind his eyes that made you think that he knew way more than what he was letting on. He was a handful. He loved spicy food and rough play. Bakugou had to buy a specially made cot with extra high sides to stop the little mister from climbing out. He was a chip off the old block, and Bakugou couldn't have been prouder of his little monster. He had been lovingly nicknamed Handful of Chi by his parents, that had been shortened to the acronym HOC, or HOC, and then morphed into Hockey. Hockey was the centre of attention whenever Mrs. Bakugou would take him out. Paparazzi and reporters were always interested in what this boy was up to, as he was the firstborn son of the great hero Dynamite, and they could see that he would be the perfect successor of Katsuki Bakugou. Kirishima and Kaminari had visited both Todoroki and Bakugou many times, and Kirishima was especially besotted with Chisuki. He would gush over the pint-sized blonde and get down on the floor and play with him. Hockey was a cunning play fighter, and 9 times out of 10 would end up with the upper hand over Kiri, which Bakugou found extremely entertaining. Bakugou would sit back with beer in hand and watch with a proud smirk on his face, occasionally slinging words of encouragement to his boy as Kiri and he wrestled on the floor. You were getting closer to the due date of your baby by now, and the appointments with the specialists were starting to get more and more frequent as you neared the end. Mrs. Kirishima, because of the complicated situation you're in with your little baby, we would like to schedule you for a planned caesarean at the hospital, the specialist said. Oh, okay, that's fine, you said, caressing your belly. You still couldn't wait to meet your little bundle. You and Kirishima had opted to not find out the gender of your baby, and you were waiting with much anticipation to meet either him or her. You had met both baby Soshi and little Hockey, and you were hoping that you would also have a little boy for your Kiri, as you saw how proud both Todoroki and Bakugou were about their boys. Kiri was just so excited to be a daddy that he didn't care. As long as he had you and a healthy baby, he was happy. The specialist gave you some options of dates of birth, and you happily picked a day. The 16th, because that was the same date as your beloved Sharky, except his was in July, and this birthday would be in October. That was next week on Monday. You were so excited and texted Kirishima as you headed to the car. Our little baby will be born on Monday, you sent excitedly. How do you know? He replied in confusion. Because that's the day the caesarean's planned for, he replied. Want to go out for dinner Sunday night, then to just have one last meal before we become a family? He asked, putting a little heart emoji at the end of his text. I would love to, you gushed with heart eyes emoji. Your Kiri was just the sweetest, and he was going to make the best daddy. Monday came, and Kirishima helped you pack the hospital bags for your stay and lovingly kissed you on the lips as he reached past you to put some newborn nappies in the bag. Now, he said with a bright, sharp-toothed smile, little onesie with I'm daddy's boy, or little onesie with daddy's princess? He held up both the tiny outfits for you, and you gushed. Oh, I don't know, Sharky, but we'll be finding out soon enough, you squealed. He gently and lovingly placed the clothes in the hospital bag and walked around behind you to engulf you in his strong arms. Your belly was well and truly in the way, so he found it easiest to cuddle you from behind. He kissed your neck softly and ran his hands tenderly over your belly. The little baby wriggled and kicked as he caressed the bump, then with a giggle gave you one more kiss and let go of you to get the bag. You ready, beautiful? He asked you, extending a hand out to you. More than ready, you replied with a giant smile. Let's go. You waddled calmly into the hospital a bit later, hand in hand with Kirishima, and told the clerk that you were here for your planned caesarean. She smiled and asked you to take a seat briefly while she called the doctor. Kirishima had been distracted by a toddler nearby and had crouched down to interact. Your heart swelled. He was going to be the most loving father. Mrs. Kirishima? Red Riot, sir. We are ready for you now. Please follow me, a head midwife said with a firm voice. She commanded attention, and you quickly alerted your Sharky, and both of you followed her down the hall. And there ends Chapter 8. Stay tuned for Chapter 9 coming tomorrow.